Thanks very much, Lucy, and thank you to everybody who's given their precious time to spend an hour with us today. This is a really informal event, so there'll be lots of chipping in. We really just want to give you a flavour of what business declares means. So we're just going to move to the next slide and have a look at what we hope to cover in the next hour. So yeah, it's really about meeting the Business Declares team, which we'll do in a minute, and then learning about who we are and what we do. And why join us and how to join us. And I know we've got a mix of people on this call, which is great. Some who are new members, and I think this will be a really good opportunity to give a flavour of now you are a member, how to get involved, but also for people that want to understand the steps they need to take to become a member. And we're going to explore the work and what we've been doing to try and bring that alive, and just give you a chance to connect within this group to like-minded organisations. And then the most important bit, which we hope to leave a really good chunk of time for, is questions, where we really want you just to shout out with anything that's on your mind, problems with joining or whatever that might be, and this will really make the event worthwhile, not hearing from us but hearing from you and why you're here. So that's just a quick overview of how we're going to spend the time, and literally we're just going to spend a few seconds each just saying why we're here. So my name's Samantha Cooper, and I joined Business Declares 2 years ago when I met Fiona, and I realised that Business Declares was the perfect place that I could use my corporate background but actually start to tackle the climate, biodiversity and social emergency, sort of the triple emergency that we're in. And I found some amazing people to work with. And also to know that there's a lot of people in business that see the complexity and know that to tackle these issues, it needs collaboration and support. And that's what we hope to give as Business Declares. And on that note, I shall hand over to Fiona.
Oh, thank you, Sam. That's lovely to hear. I'm one of the co-founders of Business Declares with John Elkington. We kind of founded it in a reaction to some of the wave of protests, children and others, in 2019, so it's more than 2 years ago. As Sam says, we work at being a collaborative network, and we have a fantastic team of volunteers who support what's going on in the centre, but really love working, and you'll hear more about that with all our businesses. So it'd be great to welcome you to this today. We're very passionate about climate change, and if you're not at COP or you've come away from COP just to be here, welcome. So I'm going to pass on now to Paul, I think, and that would be the best next step. Yeah, Paul?
Hello, thank you very much, Fiona, and I'm indeed one of those volunteers, a more recent addition to the Business Declares team, and I came to Business Declares through my work and knowledge about B Corp movement. I'm a B leader, and it's obviously very, very close links with many B corporations. And I just thought that this was something that aligned with my own personal purpose, which was that business can and should do more to help tackle the climate emergencies. And so it's great to be part of the network and work alongside people and businesses that really want to take action collectively. So it's great to be involved. I'll now hand over to Ben.
Hi everybody, Ben Tolhurst. Great to see so many people in the room and so many smiling faces in front of me. So last year I quit my job as UK board member of a big corporate. I said goodbye to 28 years of corporate career because I understood that the climate, ecological and social breakdown is going to drastically affect us as individuals, but equally our businesses, our livelihoods. Although at the same time, it offers massive opportunity for our businesses and livelihoods. And I decided last year that there is only one game in town for me, which is to volunteer to the cause of helping businesses tackle the climate, ecological and social emergency. So that's how passionate I am about this. I met Fiona 2 years ago, joined Business Declares, and it's a great bunch of people, great network, and I'm just massively proud to be part of this. That's me. Over to you, Lucy.
Thanks, Ben. Hopefully last but not least, like everybody else has just said, I'm just a fierce believer in business as a force for good. My background's actually more in the not-for-profit sector, and actually I'm really interested in how Business Declares and all of these brilliant kind of climate conscious members that we have are actually acting so dynamically to solve the problems and really setting leadership. So I find volunteering with Business Declares brilliant, because it's about how we create networks and help you all help each other more effectively, essentially. So that's a bit about us, but we thought it might be cool just to find out very briefly a bit about who you are. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick questions, and I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind just quickly popping your cameras on for just 2 minutes. I'm just going to see if, how many people I can coax to showing their faces briefly. You can turn them off again in a sec. Thanks very much. So the quick question then is, the first thing is, how much do you know about Business Declares? So on a scale of 0 to 5, so if a fist is 0, absolutely nothing, and 5 is, I know everything there is to know about Business Declares and I probably should be one of the volunteers, that would be 5. So if you just want to show on a scale of 0 to 5, how much you know about Business Declares now. Okay, we've got a mix, a definite mix. We've got a few people, we've got a 4. We've definitely got a 4 and a couple of 1s and 2s. Okay, that's good to know. The other thing I want to ask then is how far you are along in the joining process. So some of you here, we've actually got a few people here who are already members, and we've got some people who don't know much about us at all. So again, on a scale, if the bottom of the screen is I haven't taken any action, coming along today is the first thing that I've done, to at the top, I'm already a member, and so in the middle would be somewhere like, you know, I've applied but I'm not actually a member yet. Where would you say you are on a scale? Okay, again a bit of a mix. Good, okay, and then pop this one in the chat box. Actually, it's just to find out how big your businesses are. So we have members of varying sizes, so right from micro businesses, which is just also solo people, so 1 or 2 people, micro businesses up to 10, small businesses then up to 50, medium-sized businesses up to 250, and then the bigger businesses beyond that. So just in the chat box really quickly, are you solo, micro, small, medium or large business? So lots of smaller businesses, couple of bigger businesses. All right, that's good to know. And then if there's anything else you want to pop into the chat box, I know we asked some of you to do this earlier, just in terms of what you're hoping to get from today, but also what you might hope to get from joining the Business Declares network. Feel free to pop that in the chat box. But with that little bit of intro, I'm actually just going to pass back to Ben now.
Hi, thank you, Lucy. Shall we go back to the slides? Fantastic. So what I'd like to do in the next 10 minutes, everybody, is just to give you a bit of a kind of run into Business Declares, who we are, what we do, what we stand for, etc. So I think ethos and culture is probably the most important thing when talking about a business, certainly in my experience. And in that, there are 3 things I want to emphasize. So we're about inspiring and encouraging organizations to understand what the climate, ecological and social impact is on their business, because you need to bring hearts and minds with you. I know that sometimes people get a bit bored about hearing stuff like that, but actually if people understand the reason for action, then it's much easier to get them to act. So we've got this piece about inspiring and encouraging and understanding, but most importantly, Business Declares is about action and helping businesses to put in place pragmatic, concrete, workable, operationable actions to address the crisis that we're in. So that's what we're here to do, encourage and accelerate action. It's based on the core belief of 2 things, that firstly, businesses will be a vital component in tackling this crisis. Obviously, there are governments, obviously there are citizens which need to play a part, but businesses as a force for good is a huge wave of brilliance to help tackle this crisis. And the second thing that we believe is that curbing climate change makes good business sense. And it makes good business sense because climate change creates instability, and nobody likes instability, whether it's your supply chain, your customer buying patterns, your assets. And curbing climate change creates resilience, enables you to future-proof. And then the final thing is around a community. We are trying to create, or we have created, a community that is authentic in its mindset and in its desire to tackle this crisis. We are not here to create thousands and thousands of businesses signing up to Business Declares. We are here to create a community of authentic businesses. If that happens to be 1,000, great. If it happens to be 100, great. But authenticity is what we trade on. If we move on to the next page. So that's what underpins what we do. This is what we provide. So as part of joining Business Declares, what you would get access to is a network of organizations. There are multi-sectors here: banking, food, fashion, retail, security, consulting, professional services, legal. There are micro businesses, there are multinational businesses, and all of these organizations are going through the same sorts of challenges and issues when it comes to tackling the climate crisis as you are. And what we do through that network of organizations is to provide our members with tools, with good practice guides, and Sam will touch on one of them in a second, and access to experienced professionals. As well as that sort of access, what we also do is we put on events, and those events are sometimes member-led, things that you're interested in knowing, and sometimes pretty topical things of the day. A common place, particularly for micro and small businesses, is I'm overwhelmed, where do I start with all of this? Another big one is measuring scope 3s. What is scope 3? How do you measure it? And offsetting has been called into question recently. Is there good and bad offsetting? What is offsetting anyway? Where does it fit with nature-based solutions? These are the sorts of challenging areas that we open up. We are not shying away. In fact, we want to bring to the fore those types of challenges. And then the final thing that we provide is collaboration with other campaigns, other organizations, other networks. I mean, there are literally hundreds of networks out there, right? It's a huge place. What we say is this: we do not want to compete with other networks and other campaigns. We want to be additive. And additive means we want to bring something in addition to whatever else is out there. And that is our philosophy. We will not be competing and trying to take members like some kind of competitive world. This is about collaboration, because we need collaboration right now. So those are the three things that we provide on joining Business Declares. I just want to bring to life really quickly a couple of things that I've said around events and collaboration. If I could just move on to the next slide, just to give you some examples. So back in January, we hosted a phenomenal event. You can see Caroline Lucas there. This was all about why businesses need to support the CEE bill, the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill. This is a private members bill, 118 MPs, 138 councils, 248 businesses signed up, and it will be fundamental to driving the future of how this country recovers from the situation that we're in. That's an example of an edgy topic, I guess, where we have business leaders. You can see John Elkington, you can see Guy from Riverford there, talking about why businesses should support this. If we move on to the next slide, this is where I talked about the complexity of nature-based solutions, the net of net zero, offsetting, peat restoration versus tree planting. Do you do a nature-based solution at home or abroad, and what are the implications? Who provides them anyway, and how do you guarantee their authenticity, and how do you account for the carbon that you sequester? All of those types of difficult questions. We had 6 phenomenal speakers from all different backgrounds coming at us with different information to help organizations navigate through this complex journey. Move on to the next slide. In this event, the 5 Fs, we were asked by the Climate Coalition as part of their Great Big Green Week to present something to consumers. So this was a kind of B2C event, which is not something that we normally do. But of course, every citizen, or not every citizen, but many citizens are also employees. So it kind of fits with there. And the mandate here was, we, the citizens, want to do something other than not buy plastic straws and just recycle our stuff. But what can we practically do that is within our gift? So we came up with the 5 Fs event, which is around fashion, flying, fuel, food, and finance. And all of those things we created a guide of really gritty everyday actions that people can actually do and take away. So that's a good example of action-oriented and pragmatism. If we move on to another example, Letters to the Earth. You may well have seen the national campaign on Letters to the Earth, but this is all about, I guess, bringing some of the heart back into the conversations that are happening at the minute. There is so much around net zero targets and actions and plans, all of which, by the way, we desperately need, but sometimes we can kind of forget the heart. So this campaign was fronted by some celebs, media stars, Vivienne Westwood, you may have seen on the front pages, Emma Thompson, etc. And what we did with Business Declares is we encouraged a number of our CEOs. So we have Bevis Watts, for example, Chief Executive of Triodos Bank UK, Guy from Riverford, Guy Singh Watson from Riverford. And what they did is they wrote heartfelt letters to the Earth and shared them with members of their organizations and videoed them and shared them more widely. And what this did is help galvanize people, bring out their emotions and actually add that bit of heart into the mix. As I say, massively big national campaign, and if you Google it, you'll see, and there's some links in the chat. Thank you. And then the final thing, just to bring this to life, is Race to Zero. You will have heard of Race to Zero, a UN-backed global campaign. It's a coalition of businesses worldwide. There are probably over 6,000-7,000 businesses, all part and parcel of this. And the whole purpose of Race to Zero is to galvanize action and get leaders to take action on the climate, ecological and social emergency. By joining Business Declares, you become part of this network. So there were some examples just to illustrate what I was saying about the collaboration, about the events, about the types of topics that we bring. And I have to say, in the last 6 months through doing all of these things, I've met some phenomenally inspirational people, and a lot of practical action has emerged from it. So I will pause there, hand back to Sam, and over to you, Sam.
Thanks very much, Ben. Fantastic to hear about a number of events going on, and also just to highlight that in a lot of those events and collaborations, the speakers come from our Business Declares network, which is really how, as members, you can really kind of bolster our work and amplify your message. Now, are the slides up there? Is it my view that's... Oh, great, just screen sharing. So we really now, just for answering Laura and Nina's question, who put into the chat. Ben, did you want to do this slide, or shall I plow on?
You're muted, Ben.
Yeah, sorry, I have some slight technical issue there, but I'm back on. Yes. Before I pass to Sam, you'll see it's beautifully rehearsed here, just as a final slide. So based on everything I've said there, why would you join? The access to the resources, tools and knowledge. So I've given you an example of the types of things that we produce. Sam will talk through a particular toolkit in a second. And rest assured, if you're struggling with something, if you're worried about something, challenging actions to try and address this crisis, somebody else will be as well, and somebody else will be an ally with you to help work it through, or maybe they've already worked it through and can share something with you. The second thing is about demonstrating commitment. I think this very public demonstration that you are passionate, engaged, and completely on board with tackling the crisis is really important for the external and the internal world that you work in. And then finally, the war for talent is huge, and particularly around the Generation Zs. People do not want to work for a purely profit-based business anymore on the whole. There are tons of surveys around this. So this joining us gives a good signaling that you're behind this. And ultimately, what this is about, it's from a business sense, building resilience and future-proof, leaving a legacy for your business that you are proud to hand down, but it's also being part of the macro solution to this global crisis that we're in. So I will take two. Sam, back over to you.
Hello, sorry, in my excitement, I jumped in a little bit too early before, but really I think what we want to just get to now is the nuts and bolts And yeah, and what do we want from our members in terms of action? So to be clear, this is not a sign-up organisation. There are some fantastic declares out there where any business can sign their name up to one that maybe sort of architecture declares, whatever. Fantastic. We're not criticising them, but we're not about gathering names. We do authenticate a genuine commitment from our businesses, and that's why we say apply to join, not sign up to join. And a member commits to authentic climate action. This isn't about what you have done. Fantastic. The more you've done, fantastic. But we're not saying you have to have done things to join us, but you need to make the commitment at the time of signing up. And the commitments include setting a net zero target as close as possible to 2030. Now, we believe that is possible for many organisations. Just for those with huge complexity, we would discuss that. It needs to cover scope 1 and 2, but we also think that considering and discussing material scope 3 impacts of the business is really important too. We know this is incredibly complex, and we hope to have an event on this coming up in our programme for 2022. But really, we can't just ignore the wider implications and the externalities of our business footprint or our organisation's footprint. We also know offsets are quite rightly a hot topic, that offsets aren't about continuing as you do and then just hoping you can plant some trees somewhere else. We know that offsets firstly need to be very robust and have additionality in their climate outcome, but also as just part of a transition pathway. And that is something that we obviously know is complicated, and we support our members in and have had an event already, as Ben described. You want to just pop to the next slide? Thank you. We also do know for organisations, if they are committing to net zero by 2030, that really does need a transition plan. Now, things have moved on in the last 2 years, and actually large corporations, I think, are now going to be mandated to have a climate transition plan, which is fantastic and relatively new news. But certainly for an organisation that's signed up to us, we would expect that in the next 6 months, they would be able to share a one-page plan or impact report or sustainability report to show how they are addressing these issues, and also to be able to champion and share their work as a way to help other people and collaborate on solutions that are out there. We also expect members of Business Declares, number one, to be very proud to have been joining us, but also using the fact that they have joined as a great way to inspire all their stakeholders. We've got examples of Cook, who actually sent a letter to all their suppliers saying these are the standards that we hold ourselves to, and we are going to be moving towards working with suppliers who adhere to our standards. So we think that advocating for change, and as Ben mentioned too, we know there's a host of activity out there, so we try and signpost our members to what we think are the most critical movements that business can get behind too. And we know that business is what is listened to at the heart of government. So we hope that by the more we can have big business voice advocating for change, we will see the political will to make that happen. And of course, by sharing your declaration and your membership to Business Declares, I think this is a great way for you to really nudge other people as well to join us and understand more about our work. We will go through a little bit more the absolute granularity of steps of actually applying to us, but this is what you commit to when you become a member of Business Declares. And if we move to the next slide. And I think we've heard a lot from myself and Ben. I think it'd be great to bring this alive with not only one of our volunteers, but also one of our members, and this is Paul from Purpose Amplified.
Thank you very much, Sam. And just listening to Sam and Ben so far, it's just reminded me of how much this just aligns with my own business, which I'll talk about in a little while. But what brings a commonality to everybody that you can see on this slide here, and obviously it's not all of our members, but even though they're from such a diverse sectors of society and industry, and also different sizes, and do radically different things, they all have that commonality of purpose and that commitment and that willingness to not just declare and make a signal, but actually act upon it as well. And I think that's wonderful. Wonderful to see. Some names that you can pick out, a lot of familiar names here, and Sam's going to talk about a couple of things that that some of our members do for the community a little later on. But Ecotricity, Riverford have been doing great things. Wholegrain Digital, we talked about in a little while. Triodos Bank, a fairly recent joiners to the network, and another one is Compay Footprint, which is not on there, and they are a carbon footprinting business, but they offer a service for small businesses in particular, and if you've got a revenue of under 300,000, they will help you measure your carbon footprint for free. And that's just one example of a service that they're offering to the whole Business Declares community, and indeed others too. But by being part of this community, they offer that service, and it's a good way of them publicising. It's something that is good for everybody. So as well as offering some of those services, it's great to see the members be part of events too. I attended the 5S event, and it was wonderful for me to hear a letter to the earth written by and read out indeed by Amy Clark from Tribe Impact Capital. And it's, for someone who's been such a long time practitioner in the industry as Amy has, it's fantastic as a small business owner and a volunteer to be part of that and to listen. So they do that, and they also share knowledge with others, as I've already said. So you'll be hearing a couple of examples again from Sam in a little while, but I actually thought I'd tell you about my own story of my own business, because me coming to Business Declares earlier this year really tied in with the formation of my own business. I run Purpose Amplified, and it's just me. I run my own micro business, and what I do is I help SMEs to become B corporations primarily by identifying their purpose and then amplifying that. And I've long thought that business can be a force for good, and it should be a force for good. But as I was thinking about joining Business Declares, I was started to notice tension in myself. And the reason I had that tension was because I thought, well, I'm tiny. I'm a really small business and I haven't even started yet. What is my impact? It's minuscule. And compared to some of the big emitters in this world, or even some of the more established businesses, some of whom you've already just seen, well, what impact can I have? And it almost led to me to the existential question, well, actually, what's the point? If I declared a climate emergency as a business, actually, what does that mean? Is it me just adding my name to a fairly illustrious list of other businesses? And I really wasn't sure at all. So what I did was I reached out to the Business Declares team. I knew another volunteer personally, and I asked her and sort of expressed this. And she reassured me and showed me what Business Declares does, and some of the things and resources and help that you can get. And that persuaded me that actually it was something that was worth doing. So yes, I have signaled my intent as a small business, and you'll get to see, I'll put a link to my own declaration and you'll see it on the slide in a little while. But actually it's helped me to tackle a common problem, which I and a lot of small businesses have, and Ben mentioned it earlier, which is that overwhelm and where to start. If I want to set in stone as my business moves and grows and develops, being on the right path, well, I'm going to need some help to do that, because I don't know everything. And it's fantastic to have access to all of the resources that I can, but also to get some guidance and some help on exactly what I should be doing. And now I have declared, it's not just relief, but the excitement and the knowledge that I can take this forward, and I know exactly who I can call on as I need to embed things as the business grows is wonderful to realise. So it's fantastic that I've got all these resources, and it's fantastic to know that I'm not overwhelmed with where to start and what to do and how to start. One example is I have a website. Every single business has a website. So how do I minimise the impact of my digital footprint? And one way, which I won't steal Sam's thunder completely, is using a toolkit from one of our Business Declares members. And finally, the other thing that I'd like to say about small businesses, I'm one of tens of thousands of businesses. Most of you will know that if you added up all the businesses in this country, 99% have 50 employees or fewer. That's a lot of businesses. But what I do is I speak to small business owners all the time, pretty much every day. And so whenever I send an email, I've got the business declares signature at the bottom of my signature block, which everybody gets to see. I mention it. I talk to people about business declares all the time. And so I think I advocate because it's something I want to do, but my voice and my impact will be far greater in a positive way than the negative impact of my tiny business. And I find that really empowering and energizing and a great thing to do. And everybody here knows that they talk to businesses too on a regular basis. So it's something that we can all do. And Business Declares, being a member of Business Declares, has allowed me to do that. It's given me a useful framework and something that I can immediately share, which I wouldn't have got otherwise. And my final point before I hand back to Sam to talk about some of the specific things that other members have been doing is that it's really easy to worry about and think about the climate emergency, and I'm sure everybody in the audience here is. But rather than saying we're going to do something and then being a gap between actually doing, say do gap, which you might rebrand as greenwashing, I prefer to actually think about it as a think act gap. And we're all thinking about it and we all care and we all know it's important. But by joining Business Declares, I feel I've now begun to act and shorten that gap. And I really hope that, so for those of you that are not yet members, that you also shorten that think, act gap and begin to find out more and join us. So I shall now hand back to Sam, but please, if you've got any questions for me about what I've said or anything else that you've seen today, then do pop them in the chat and I'll get back to you during the Q&A a bit later.
Thanks, Paul. That's just fantastic to really bring it to life rather than just sort of an academic reason why people should join. Very quickly, we're just going to open this up now to some questions and just get some reflections from the room, from you out there on what you're thinking. And I'm going to actually start by answering one question that's already come in, which is what's the difference between B Corp? Why? So Paul is very active in the B Corp movement, but he's also chosen to join Business Declares. And I'd say there's kind of two reasons. And firstly, we work very closely with B Corp. One of our non-executive director, Kate Sandel, is one of the leading forces of B Corp. So we make sure that our work is very connected. But also we know, especially for small organizations, that B Corp, it's a big process to go through and expensive. So we want there to be no barriers. And so it's an easier process from the climate perspective to show your credentials and join us. But also secondly, I'd say that from the members that we have, we position ourselves quite on the edge of climate action. And we find that most of the businesses that join us are really willing to talk about all the very difficult aspects and complexities. And we're not really here just to say it's all fantastic and we've got it all sorted, but really to be open to the edgier conversations about what profit and planet means. So that gives you a quick flavour, but we can answer more of that. But now, any questions? Hands up, questions in the chat, reflections, thoughts?
I think Laura earlier on and Nina also had a question about what action we take. So I'm not sure if that's specifically about how to join or it's more about what action we take together. So I don't know if Laura or Nina wants to speak to that. They're probably busy on something else, maybe grabbing a bite to eat or something. So in which case, maybe you should carry on, Sam, for a little bit.
What I'll do is I'll continue then. Hopefully, maybe by the time we finish, we've been so comprehensive, there are no questions at all, which I doubt very much, probably add to the confusion. So what I'll do is I'll just plow on. If you pop the slides up, be great. Really, what I wanted to do, was there just one before that, Lucy, which had all the had not all the logos, but had that one. Perfect. Thank you. So really, Business Declares is nothing without its members. And what we also want to do is ensure that the amazing work that you're all doing within your businesses can be shared and amplified through what we do. So I just wanted to give a couple of examples of collaboration and how our members have supported our work. I've just seen, I think Karen has a hand up. So what I'll do is I'm just going to finish doing this, and then we will come back to your question in a quick moment. So thanks for popping your hand up. So firstly, a really good example is Cook. Cook have been running their own Project Zero and really looking at all of that. I mean, if you know Cook, they make ready meals, fantastic ready meals, and they really just wanted to look at all of their footprint and how they could tackle each thing in an organized fashion, and what they came up with Project Zero, which is fantastic. And I think this might be useful for Fudge Kitchen, who I saw signed up. And so what we did was at one of our members' events, Andy from Cook was just fantastic at just talking through practically what they had done and what they still had to do and what they hadn't yet solved through water, waste management, etc. And just really to inspire and share examples. So that's one really good example. Pucker, I think I mentioned in the chat, they wrote a one-page climate action plan, which has been used as a great template to inspire other businesses to what a plan might look like. I think we've heard about Green Element and Compare Your Footprint from Paul. Another fantastic example is Nature Save Insurance, one of our great members. They, if a business uses them for insurance, they then help them with free impact assessments on their emissions. So there's lots of different ways that our members all come together and sort of inform our work. And one just a really exciting example is Toast Ale, fantastic organisation that use bread and food waste to make very, very nice beer. They've done this fantastic COP champion series, companion series with 26 other breweries, I think. And I think you can see the logo there. We have collaborated on a beer, which is a Business Declares beer. So yeah, there's lots of different ways we can get our message out there. And I think for any business to think about how they want to support our work and amplify their message. And if we want to just pop through to the next slide, another example, which Paul again mentioned, was we felt, you know, as we said, our members inform our work. And certainly a year ago, there wasn't much out there about the digital footprint and a request for digital resources. And actually talking with B Corp, Kate from B Corp said, yeah, that's not something as B Corp that we've yet tackled. One of our members, Whole Grain Digital, fabulous, Tom, is a real leader in how to reduce your website footprint and understanding your software and your hardware and all the things you can do. And so we worked together, or in fact, really, he did a lot of the work on putting his expertise into the toolkit that now is a free resource, not just for members, you can share with all your employees and much more widely to just really help tackle what is a very, very growing carbon footprint, as we know. And one comment we often had from businesses was, well, I just have a small team and they all work from home. And we kind of came up, that every remote desk matters. And if every employee actually starts to impact their environmental footprint at home for 20% of, say, they're working from home, that impacts 100% of their household. So it just felt like another really good way that companies could have an impact. And on that note, I think, should we go back to questions, get Karen's question?
So Karen, if you want to, there you are.
Yes, so I signed the Business Declares Declaration some while back, sometime in the summer, and I've published it on my website. So the questions I have is, have I gone through the process and am I a member? Is that what I call myself now, having done that?
Karen, what is your organisation, if you could?
I am Kaya Clothing, Sustainable Clothing.
But this is a really good question. And I think what has happened in the past is some people, when you apply to join, we then need to verify that you signed the commitments and get a declaration. And I do know that in some cases, people have got a bit stuck on where they're at. So what we can do is I will work with you afterwards offline just to check with where your application is. And then we can make sure that we can put that through into the final stage, if that makes sense.
Okay, I mean, I was sent the logo to publish on my website and all of that, so I assumed that I was through and done. Yeah, it would be great to just clarify everything.
Brilliant. Well, I think you were probably working with Taki, one of our administrators who's moved on to her master's degree, so we'll check out that one, Karen. But thank you so much for checking.
Brilliant. There was a to my question. Can I just tag that bit on? So how do members, I mean, you know, maybe I'm asking this because I'm not fully a member, so this, you know, this may all become clear, but how do members network?
Help answer that.
Fantastic, thank you, that's great.
Brilliant. I think it would be great for you to share a little bit more, Sam, of the rest of it, and then we'll see if there's any more questions, because some people might not know.
Great.
The very
let's just go through
joining.
Yeah, a little bit more on the steps, and this will play into Karen as well. So yeah, if you put the slides up, certainly, and I think it's been a good example from Karen to highlight this, because some organisations you can just sign up. On our website, some people, when they've done apply to join, have thought they're already a member. But clearly, what we've decided we need to do is just make it a bit more of a formalised process. Unfortunately, Vaishnavi, our new volunteer, is not here, but she's been fantastic in helping us really clarify this. So what we've got now is steps you can follow through on a Google Doc. And so what we do encourage organisations to do is draft their own declaration, and this is a declaration of membership to Business Declares, which automatically means you're acknowledging the climate and ecological emergency. Now, originally, when Fiona first started off, not many businesses at all had acknowledged the emergency. So we know now that we're not asking a company that's already been very clear to restate it, but by joining Business Declares, you inherently are also acknowledging this emergency. But the reason we say draft your own declaration, we have many out there, which I'm going to show on the next slide, but we also want this to be real for your organisation. And what we'll find is, so I think one example, which is Cook, again, who I've talked about before. Before they joined, they said, we're really concerned about joining Business Declares and looking as if to say, we've got all the answers and we don't want to be pulled down. So we've actually, it's become a bit of our ethos with Cook, who said, we're not claiming to be perfect. We're not judging others. We're all on a journey. So many organizations have taken that wording. But also we want to just make sure it's live for your business. So you have a draft statement / declaration for your business. Karen, did you just want to chip in? Oh,
I'm happy to wait until you finish. It wasn't an urgent question.
Right, perfect, thank you. And also, as part, if you follow through the practical steps on the Google Doc, you also just need to formally sign up to our commitments and share your logo, and then await confirmation from Business Declares team, which will hopefully happen, which will absolutely happen now we've got these steps in place. You can also then at that point line up a call if you've got any particular questions or concerns, or want to be matched with somebody that might already be tackling one of your issues. Then we've got a sort of a panel of expert volunteers that can do a 30-minute call to really help you through your issues. And then the next step, which is really important, is to share your declaration and the BD logo on your website and social media to really ensure that people are able to see that you've joined and the stand that you are making. And just really quickly, we are free to join. I think that's important to stress. We want there to be no barriers to people taking climate action. But we're volunteer-led, and we critically rely on donations from businesses who are in a position to support our work and donate. And so we really do. We almost view it as if larger organisations can pay it forward, so those smaller micro businesses can get on and join us at the first steps, rather than having to join us later and retrofit because they can't afford to be part of our organisation. So if you want to just move to the next slide. This was just a very quick way, and if you go through to our website and look at members, when you click on the members, there's also some other examples of declarations that people have used. But there's one here which is from Purpose Amplified from Paul, where he's used some wording just to link into where he is at in his current organisation. And Seismic as well, another member, that's just an example there of how they've linked to the fact that they're already B Corp and what their net zero commitments are. And of course, if anyone is going through this process and wants help with their declaration or get some further suggestions, then they just drop a note and get in touch with the team to do that. And on that note, I think we'll go back to any questions, Karen or anyone else.
Thank you. I was just wondering, for businesses that are going through or have passed through the B Corp process and are already a B Corp, would that give automatic pass to membership? Because I'm in the final stages of my B Corp assessment and they're fast tracking now. So I could come through the end of that this month, maybe. So just wondering how that works.
Absolutely. What we tend to do as part of when organisations come through, and part of the new form will ask, and if you're B Corp and you've got 20, 30 commitments, it's kind of like absolute tick, you know, or if it's an organisation we haven't heard of, we might then have a bit more of a conversation to check that it's an authentic commitment. But absolutely, a B Corp sign up, sustainability reports, any affiliations or commitments you've already made, absolutely ease through the path to joining.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, really good question. And just to answer one of the questions in the chat that I think we have developed just recently, actually, in response to a lot of people wanting to join at similar times at this moment, a form that you can use, and that particular form is on a link I've just put in the chat. And those of you who kind of done apply to join, that's really about registering your interest. And we've always, as Sam says, wanted to make this authentic and have a discussion, but we thought that it would also be useful to get some more detailed information from you and all the steps in this one particular form to make it easier for you to join. So you'll be getting that as an email through the Eventbrite system. We're very happy to still carry on chatting either individually or through info at Business Declares, but I've put that link there, so it should give you just all the steps that sometimes people might have got caught up on around declaration and logo, etc. Any other questions that we've got?
There was a couple of questions that I noted, Fiona. So there was one from Matt, who, so Matt, if you're there, I don't know, oh, there he is. Feel free to unmute. You were saying you were looking for just a one-liner about Business Declares.
I hesitate to unmute because, as you can tell, I've lost my voice. Sympathy, very grateful. Both Nikki and I are members of the Association for Survey Computing, and we host conferences twice a year. And we're very active in the areas of market research sector in the UK and internationally. And it's next week on the 11th. And so, you know, is there a sort of templated one-liner material that we can, rather than just making it up ourselves, you know, so that we can really deliver the message to the conference delegates who are, you know, sector leaders and business owners, tech developers? Thank you.
Well, I think it's like it always takes a long time to write a short letter. You would probably find that the one-liner, actually, I liked what Jo Peel, who's a recent member, put in the chat earlier. She said Business Declares was about authenticity and action. So we're very happy to send you something which would, you know, summarize what we do. It's all on the website. I think it isn't just about declaring, it's about declaring and acting. So I love what Jo put in there, if that helps you. And, you know, happy to chat later about that conference if you'd like to.
And Matt, it's Ben. Just to jump in here, I'll send you something separately in the chat now. Now you've clarified the question. That's really helpful. I'll send you something that may do the job. Yeah, and great to hear that Fiona, that your students will be thrilled at Bristol. So that's a really interesting way to kind of get the message across to people. Any other questions? There was one about ISO 1401, I think, which, you know, officially, see many large organisations will use that environmental standard. I guess, you know, that's an important thing to do. It might not be something you invest in if you're just a small, low organisation, but I think what we know in working with Race to Zero is that it's very important to verify the action and the net zero pledges. So I think when you start on this journey, what you want to do is look at the resources page we have, see what can help you, and hopefully through the forum we're going to create, you'll be able to connect with those other members. But I think you could, at this stage, just connect with another member. And I've often had new members
and we've put them in touch with each other when they've got specific issues. Things like the digital toolkit have been really helpful for that. So just in the last 5 minutes, wanted to check if there's any other questions people have, or whether anyone would like to come off mute or make a comment. Russ, yeah, Russell.
Hi, hello from sunny Cornwall. What's kind of baffling, or not baffling me, but concerning me is how many of this type, or in a Venn diagram, you'd have this massive collection of different initiatives or pledges, or what are the other words, alliances and marks and hubs and all the sorts of stuff. If you go into the Race to Zero site and look at their partner site, you see obviously yourself and B Corp, which we're one, Climate Pledge, which we were looking at, Race to Zero. What sets the business declares aside from that? Is there good reason to cross-pollinate between, I'm a tech industry, so probably would Tech Zero might appeal, but Race to Zero and Net Zero plus Climate Pledge plus the climate leadership as well, which is one I'm looking at.
I will say one answer, then I'm going to pass to Ben, because I think Ben will be in a good shape to answer as well. But we really do feel, and we're not in competition. So we're not trying to pull people to join us if they don't want to. And we really understand that there's an awful lot going on out there, and it's moving all the time. But we have really positioned ourselves to be really quite on the edge of businesses in the topics and the conversations we have. I think an example, Riverford, it's been a really good example. They talk about the fact that they're still using plastic in some of their deliveries, because even though people like glass and paper, they've done the full life cycle analysis and it's more expensive. So we're not saying standard, but we do know that most organizations that join us are really willing to discuss very difficult, the elephants in the room. When is profit not appropriate? Because the profit they're making is really going to be destroying the planet. And so that is one way that we believe that we are additive, and add something different to perhaps some of the other organisations. But I'll also I'll hand over to Ben as well.
Okay, very quickly, 3 words: authentic, edgy, and action-oriented. I think we differentiate ourselves on those 3 areas: authentic, edgy, and action-oriented. But I do completely sympathise. There are a mass of things out there, and it's really hard to navigate which networks. But those are the 3 areas I would say that we are different from the bulk of the others.
Can we hand over to Angela, if Angela wanted to unmute, because she's just said something really wonderful on the chat that I think everyone should see. And you're a member as well.
And Russell and I have met a couple of things previously. So yeah, for me, it's more about that point that Ben made, actionable. My experience of being a business affairs member is that I can talk in a safe space about issues that are affecting our business in terms of our environmental aspirations and standards, and work out with others sort of good solutions. That's sort of the experience that I've had. I think, we're a B Corp too, Russell, that we've spoken about it before. We do a lot around our B Corp status and we're really proud of it. But I just find this more a practical application, a more practical way to kind of deal with those environmental and sustainability issues that we're grappling with all the time.
I suppose from that, Angela, do you subscribe to the B Corp's Net Zero as well?
Yeah, we don't see it as a challenge to be kind of signed up to both.
You just kind of wonder how many logos you can get at the bottom of a page. It's what's worrying me. And it'll be a race to, having a half year footer dedicated to how many pledges you've made. And it's essentially the same pledge replicating and getting your...
It's interesting. We did work very closely. In fact, inspired, I think, Charmaine's Love's work on the B Corp. But so we're working together, and they are a massive movement. I mean, I'm really happy for you to make choices about that. But what we also want to offer, as Angela said, that network, and to let other people who haven't got the resources to go through the B Corp process, or particularly want to focus on climate and ecological emergency directly, to come with us. So I think we are actually out of time, but it's been wonderful to have all that. Maybe I should hand back to Lucy at the very final moment. And we do actually have a slide, I think, just to leave with, if that would be useful to put on. Be lovely to hear what you've got out of this. And of course, we'd love to hear from you directly. If when we send you that link, if you want to fill in the form and apply, do it that way, please do. But if you just want to kind of have a chat about it, then please get in touch on the email, and Vice or one will connect us to one of us and we'll have a conversation. Thank you very much. It's nice to hear that you've got a bit encouraged, Joe, from this. So that's lovely. And really enjoyed having everybody on the call today.
Thanks very much, everybody. So we will send you a wrap-up email that contains all the information we've given you today and the links that we've talked about. There is also, I'm just popping it in the chat box super quickly. If you've got 60 seconds to do a quick bit of feedback, it's always helpful for us to make sure that we're giving members and prospective members the right information. But otherwise, thanks very much. And hopefully we'll be talking to some of you in more detail another time.
Thanks, Lucy, for looking after us all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Good to see you, Tessa.